All right. Well, welcome to Lesson 6-7, and as promised last night and with what we discussed in class today, we're going to be revisiting the exact same material, the exact same type of problems. The only difference is tonight we're going to look at a different way to solve the same problems. Now, mathematically, what we're doing in terms of the computation is actually really the same thing. It's really just a different way to set it up. In terms of what gets divided and what gets multiplied, the steps of what actually is happening mathematically are really going to be identical. It's really just a different way to set up the problem. All right, so without further ado, I would like to introduce my old favorite guest. Say hi.
Ben.
Ben is back. So put your seatbelts on, and let's kind of compare first what we did before and what we're going to do today. So yesterday, when we did percents, we did them all as proportions, right? And so what was the big equation you had to remember?
Is of equals percent 100.
Right, is over of equals percent over 100. And we set them all up as proportions. We then solved them by cross-multiplying and dividing. Okay, the difference is we're going to take this percent, instead of thinking of something like 25%.
Like a whole number?
Normally we'd put it in as a whole number and we'd put it over 100. Well, another way to think of 25 over 100 is think of it as a decimal. So 0.25, go back to the lesson where we changed fractions into decimals into percents. Okay, another way to think of percents is as a decimal, and that's what we're going to do for tonight's lesson. So instead of thinking of 25% as 25 over 100, we're going to think of it as 0.25. Okay, so an example, suppose we had 30%. If we did it the old way, we'd treat it as 30 over 100 from last night. Today we're going to treat it as 0.30. But clearly both of those mean the same thing, right? They both reduce down to 3/10 as a fraction. All right, so if we were taking 30% of 120, if we did it the old way from last night, we would take the percent and we'd put it over 100, and we'd set it up as is over of. We're looking for the is. So really this whole question is, if I had to write in the rest of the question, what we're really saying is what is 30% of 120, right? So the is the variable, the of is given, it's 120. We would cross multiply and divide this, and we would get 100x equals 30.120. Divide both sides by 100. Okay, 100 is really 10 times 10. We fruit ninja there. And so one of these 10s cancels out with that 10. The other 10 cancels with that 10. So I get 3 times 12 on the top is 36, and that's the answer. Okay, so that's the way to do it with proportions.
Yeah.
Now, the new way to do it, okay, the 6-7 way, is we're going to do, what we're really doing here is we're doing 30, remember the original question? 30% of 120.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is another way to think of 30%? Instead of thinking of it as a fraction, think of it as a decimal, 0.30. What does the word of mean in mathematics, Ben?
Multiplication.
Right, of, when we did it the old way, of was basically told me to put the number down here.
Yeah.
Is over of equals percent over 100. But when we use it as a calculation, when we take percent of something, the word of means multiplication. So we're going to change the percent to a decimal, the of to a times, and then we just put the number that we're taking the percent of, which is 120. And sure enough, if I multiply 0.30 times 120, I get 36. Okay? Now, it's not quite as easy. You'd actually have to do the arithmetic either by hand. So you take 120 times 0.30. I'm going to cheat and put the 0 way over there. If I multiply 120 by 3, I get 360. Okay, but you got one decimal place. 2 decimal places, so move it back. Actually, I guess 0. So move it back 2, and you get 36. Okay, it's a little sloppy. Sorry about that. But if we had to show the work, that's what we would do. Okay, so we verified that, sure enough, whichever way we do it, we're getting the same answer. Okay, and really, mathematically, doing 30 divided by 100 is the same as 0.30. Look right here. Okay, see right there? We had 30 over 100, didn't we?
Yeah.
Isn't that the same thing as 0.30? And then we're multiplying by what? 120.
120.
Okay, so mathematically, like I promised, we're really doing the exact same thing.
Just simple.
Now, let's go back to that problem that we had yesterday. Remember the fact we had?
Yeah.
That we just started with a simple fact. We put in all the numbers. So if I take 10% of 50, I get 5. Okay, so once again, this was the percent, this was the of, and this is the is. Okay, so just like yesterday, we could do 3 different problems. Okay. We could find the is, we could find the percent, or we could find the of. Well, let's do the same thing here. So we could say, what is 10% of 50? And the way I'd find that one is I'd do 0.10 times 50, And 0.10 times 50 equals 5.
5.
Okay. 5 is what percent of 50? So what we're going to do is we're going to set it up. Percent of 50 is always going to go on one side of the equation. So the percent is what we don't know. Of means times 50. And we know that that is equal to 5. So we're going to set that equation up.
Yeah.
We're going to divide both sides by, oops, that didn't work. We're going to divide both sides by 50. Okay, I'm going to get x equals 5 over 50, which is 1/10, which is 0.1, which is 10%, right?
Yep.
Okay, so there we go, we found the percent. And finally, the last one, I'm kind of out of room here, but if I want to do 5 is 10% of what number? It's going to be 5 is 10% is going to be 0.10, and we're going to put the x here. Divide both sides by 0.10, and 5 divided by 0.10 will give me 50.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll end up getting the right answer. Okay, it's the same idea. So usually, this is important, usually when we do percent problems using the decimal and the multiplication, we're going to usually be looking for the is. Find a percent of a number. So basically this first one, we're looking for, whoops,
Yeah.
we're going to be looking for find the is. So what is 10% of 50? What is 14% of 96? Things like that. But it is possible to do the other two types of problems when you're looking for the percent of the using this new method. All right, I know that may be a little bit confusing. So what I'm going to have you do tonight, these are the 3 problems we were going to make you do on your own. And if you're feeling like you've really got this, a great challenge would be to pause us right now and go ahead and try to do these 3 equations on your own. Okay, and remember, let me give you the general format. So instead of is over of equals percent over 100,
Just
in this case it's going to be is equal to the percent as a decimal times the of. Okay, so that's essentially what we're doing tonight. Okay, so if you're feeling up to it, go ahead and try these. If you're really confused, don't get yourself frustrated. How about you just work these problems with us in a second? And I apologize for that first one. That is a little hard to read. Let's go ahead and fix that first one, Ben. That was supposed to be a percent sign. Okay, what is 22% of, well, that's hard to read too.
30. Oh.
We weren't doing so well here
Yeah,
today.
I was wondering
All right.
if that was enough.
Well, the top of the screen sometimes comes down.
Yeah.
There we go. What is 22% of 30? The second question is 24 is what percent of 50? And finally, 82 is 30% of what number? So it's all 3 types of problems. Okay,
So
pause now if you're up to it. If not, hang with us and we'll go through these step by step. All right, for those of you that are just joining us back, good for you. Thanks for accepting the challenge. All right, so the first one, what is 22% of 30? That's the standard equation. So we're going to set x equal to, what do I do with the percent?
Multiple.
Change it to
A fraction. I mean decimal.
change it to a decimal, so it's going to be 0.22. The of becomes multiplication, that's right,
Yeah.
times 30. And 0.22 times 30 is going to give you 6.6. Okay? So 0.22 times 30 is equal to 6.6. And if you show that work and you set up that equation, 0.22 times 30, and you want to use a calculator to check your calculation, that's fine. We did not, but we're going to double check with a calculator just to make sure I don't make any silly mistakes. And sure enough, we checked and it does come out to be 6.6. The second one, the 24 is the x, so 24 is, so that's 24 equals what percent, oh, we don't know what it is this time, blank, so x,
Yeah.
of, so that's going to be the times, 50. All right, and to solve this, what I'm going to have to do is divide both sides by 50. Agreed? All right, and so the x as a decimal is going to be 24 divided by 50. I believe that's 48. Sure enough, I get 0.48 as a decimal, which is the same thing as 48%. Okay, and technically I would accept either of these answers, but really the 48% is the better answer. Up here I should have put a box around my answer, 6.6. Okay, finally, 82 is 30% of what number? So 82 is going to be the equal to. 30% is going to be written as 0.30. The of is going to be times, so I'm going to use a dot this time, and the what number is going to be the x. So divide both sides by 0.30. Now don't forget what happens when you divide by a decimal. Okay, 0.30 goes into 1 about 3 times. So, quick guesstimate here, if I divide by something about the size of 1/3, something about the size of 82, I should get about 250 or so.
Yeah.
Sure enough, if I take a calculator and I divide 82, and I divide it by 0.30 or just 0.3, I'm going to get 270, oops, this canceled out. I get x is equal to 273.3 repeating. That's the exact answer.
Yeah.
If I ask to round it to the nearest tenth, it's going to be 273.3. Okay? If it was money, it'd go up to 4, but otherwise it's that.
Yeah.
So, once again, this is really the same mathematical principle as what we were doing yesterday with the proportion. It's just a different way to show the work.
Yeah.
So we're showing the work as decimals instead of fractions, and we're doing a multiplication equation instead of a proportion.
Yeah.
Mathematically, they're equivalent. All right, so that's it. We're going to end the slide with a picture of Ben. And as I said, it's good to have Ben back again. He hasn't done a video in quite a while. So thank you all for tuning in and watching. And we'll see you in class tomorrow when we'll practice solving some more percent problems, this time using equations instead of proportions. All right, thanks for watching, everybody.